Welcome to Producer's Toolbox. I'm your host, Carole Adrienne, and today we are going to talk about using historical images in your film and television work. And I have a guest I'm thrilled to introduce, my friend Sarah Weatherwax, who is the Senior Curator of Graphics at the Library Company of Philadelphia. And we are going to talk about how to find the appropriate historical images for your piece of work. So whether you're working in film, video, whether it's a two-dimensional piece of work like a book, you may want to supplement your visuals with historical images. And we're so lucky in the Philadelphia area because we have more libraries and archives of a specialty nature than any city in the country except Washington, D.C. So there is amazing stuff to be had. And if you're telling a story about another century and even before photography, some of these images can give incredible depth and texture to your work. Woodcuts, old black and white pictures, paintings, drawings. So Sarah has helped me through many projects over many years. She has supplied hundreds of images for my documentaries, my book, lectures, and I'm very glad to have her here today. And we're going to talk about how to find this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So whether you are making a piece about your family history to share, or whether you're making a documentary, Sarah is going to walk us through. But I'd like you to just tell us a little bit about Library Company of Philadelphia, which is a unique and wondrous institution. Can you tell us about it and what the collections are like, Sarah?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Carole. And I'd like to say that I'm really delighted to be here because while we try to be nice to all our researchers, you are one of my favorite researchers. You always are working on such interesting projects. It really is a pleasure to help you find the images that will help you bring your projects to life. So just a brief rundown of what the Library Company is all about. We were founded by Benjamin Franklin and a group of his friends back in 1731. And today the Library Company is an independent research library. We are not part of the Philadelphia Public Library system. We're not associated with a university or a college. We exist to help people do their research. We have a collection of about 500,000 books and over 100,000 graphic items, with the focus being on American history and culture from the colonial period up into the early 20th century. We help all sorts of researchers, ranging from senior scholars who are working on books or articles to graduate students working on dissertations, to members of the general public who might be interested in what their neighborhood looked like 150 years ago, to filmmakers, which is what we're talking about today. The Library Company is free to anyone who'd like to come in to use our resources. We have 2 reading rooms. And we have an exhibition gallery where we do changing exhibitions that show off different parts of our collections. And we have public programming and different events that we are happy to have people attend.
And your collection is so wide-ranging. I thought when I get in touch with Sarah, and I might be saying, can you get me a Gatling gun and a Napoleon cannon? Or how about a pavilion hospital from the Civil War? I've just gotten pieces that are beautiful beyond my expectations. So it's a pretty awesome experience. But it's also something where you need to have an idea of, you need to be able to give the librarian an idea about what you're searching for. So Sarah's going to do a demonstration with, this is something that would work whether you're doing a documentary about immigration or whether you're doing a piece about your family. Your great-great-grandparents may be arriving in this country around 1900. So Sarah's going to walk us through the kinds of things where you might find A, information, and B, wonderful images to tell your story. Sarah, it's all yours.
Okay, thanks. Well, Carole and I came up with the idea of creating a fictional Italian immigrant family coming to Philadelphia around 1900 as just sort of a story that we could tell using materials at the library company. And, I tried to, as Carole was saying, think of things that, while we might not have something specifically about your particular relative, chances are we won't, we can find things that in a general way will allow you to tell a more specific story. And one of the things that I thought I'd start with was showing you a Philadelphia ward atlas from 1895, which is about the time when there was a lot of Italian immigration coming into the city. And this particular page of the atlas shows Philadelphia from west of Broad Street, actually west of 10th Street to the Delaware River, and south of South Street, which was the Italian neighborhood in the late 19th, early 20th centuries. So, as you can see, it is very, very densely packed here. All of the pink is indicating that those buildings were all brick buildings. Pink is indicating brick. Yellow is, I believe, wood. But just look at how close they are together. It's just row house after row house, block after block. Also, the ward atlas will tell you some of the important buildings that were in the neighborhood, sort of community centers. It will tell you what the churches are, the public schools. Some of the more important businesses, factories will be identified. It won't tell you the names of the people who actually lived in the different buildings, but it really does give you a sense of what the neighborhood was like. And also just to point out, there's not a whole lot of greenery there. Pretty much the only green that you see are cemeteries. So this was a very congested neighborhood. The next slide that I wanted to show you is a photograph that sort of takes you to a street level view from part of that ward. This is a photograph taken in the late 19th century of a travel agency, a steamship ticket agency located on South 8th Street. And it's the Lago Marcino's steamship ticket agency. And, look, there's people hanging out the windows. There's, people on the front stoop. There's even a dog. This is a lively neighborhood. And if you look really closely at the photograph, you can read the signs, and the signs are in both English and Italian. So this is a business that is, working with the local community. It says on some of the signage says you can buy passage to and from all points of Europe here. One of the signs in Italian says you can send money to anywhere in Italy from here. Wow. So, it's showing you that, this was how people were getting money, sending money back to family members who were still in Italy. Maybe they were sending them tickets so they could come to Philadelphia. It really, gives you a sense of how immigration was taking place in this community. It's also just a nice photograph. Then I went
It really gives you that sense of the where and the when. And mm-hmm. It also surprised me when you said it's so densely populated. I mean, here we are more than 100 years later. It's still very densely populated, but who knew it was that long ago? Mm-hmm. Sorry, I had a comment.
No, that's quite all right. Then I took the information, this is from 1895. I went to a city directory, a Philadelphia city directory, which you may or may not be familiar with, but cities would, on a yearly basis, produce a directory where it would list all the household heads and the businesses in alphabetical order. I assume other cities other than Philadelphia did it, but I'm familiar with Philadelphia that produced these throughout the entire 19th and into the 20th century, sort of the precursor of like a telephone directory. And I went to the page where I thought I would find the Lago Marcino steamship ticket agency. And lo and behold, I did find them. And that enabled me to find the first name of the person who owned the business. It was Augustus. And to confirm, it said that the business was located at 758 South 8th Street. And I went back and looked very closely at the photograph, and I can see a 758 above the door. So I know I have the right business. But what also was sort of neat about that page, again, it's not visually striking, but it showed me just by looking at that page of people whose last name started with L. I saw a Charles the Fortunata, who was a musician. I saw Pasquale Langoni, who worked as an excavator, who both lived just within a few blocks of where the travel agency was. So again, it just gives you the sense of, the type of community, the close-knit Italian community that was there in that particular part of Philadelphia.
And you really might be able to a point, search your own relatives if they were living in this area at that time. Well, I guess with that directory, it's
yes,
alphabetical.
If you knew the last name of your family member, yes, you could go year by year looking. And that's sort of a fun way to be able to follow if they moved around the city. You'd be able to say, oh, well, in 1893, he was here, but by 1897, oh, he's somewhere else within the city. Or to see that he changed jobs, because it often says, Mark Brown was a, cobbler. And then 2 years later, maybe he's a carpenter, but you can tell he's at the same address. So you had the right person. So it really is kind of amazing what just kind of dry statistical things can help you build a picture of someone's life.
Well, research really is a form of detective work in my experience. The further you dig, and sometimes it's easy, and sometimes you run into a fire or something where records were destroyed. But the city directory is those are amazing resources. So it's the city directory and the ward, what was the first one?
Ward atlases.
The ward atlases.
The first ward atlas for Philadelphia was 1862, and they certainly were not coming out every year. I'm not quite, at the library company, we have them from about every 10 years or so. And I just don't know if that's how often that they were published, or that just simply is what we have in our collection. I am not sure. And I will say with city directories, it does get harder, like for all research, when you're researching women as opposed to men, because women, unless they were the household head, are not going to be listed in a city directory. But if you have a single woman who was supporting herself, she will be listed, or sometimes as a widow, she'll be listed. But, someone who was someone's wife, you probably are not going to find her. You'll find possibly her husband, but you won't know necessarily that they're connected. That's where it does become harder to find everybody that way.
That's important information, especially if you're searching genealogies. That is really good to know. Wow. What do we have next?
Okay. So I decided, our fictional Italian family did not just stay in South Philadelphia. They did travel around the city. So the next photo I have here shows you, just kind of thinking broadly about what the experience might have been for an Italian family or anybody. How did they get around the city? And it shows you 2 trolley cars. And this photo was taken in around 1898. But again, if you look closely at the destination signs on the trolley cars, one is heading towards Jackson Street and the other is going to Mifflin Street, which are both addresses in South Philadelphia. So, that just sort of tells you, possibly how your family got around. And then I made the leap that because this is fiction, I can make these leaps. I then decided that our fictional Italian family, or at least someone in the family, took the trolley to work. And possibly they might have worked at a place like the Stetson Hat Factory, which is what the next 2 images are. These 2 images of Stetson are postcards, and they date to the early 20th century. And they're part of a collection of we have about a dozen from the Stetson Hat Factory that were all produced at the same time. So sort of like a little set of postcards that showed both the exterior of this huge complex of buildings and interiors of the different areas, the different steps that went into making a hat, and then also some of the facilities that were there for, the lunchroom or the auditorium. Because one of the things I thought that was quite interesting was that Stetson needed a huge workforce. The first postcard, if you look at the lower right corner, it says employed, I think it says 5,500 workers. I mean, that's an enormous number of people. And he specifically reached out to Italian immigrants, trying to encourage them to come to Philadelphia to work in his factory. And he offered things like Americanization classes, where, at the factory, as a way to try to assimilate, people into the American way of life. So I thought that was quite interesting as sort of a social thing to go along with, the idea, the concept of, the work that these immigrants did.
That's amazing that a company that employed that many people at that point in time. I always think of big corporations as a contemporary thing, but no. Wow.
Lots of people wore hats. They needed lots of hats.
I always think of Stetsons in Texas. So we were making cowboy hats in Philadelphia in 1900 and beyond. Wow. That's so this would be, these are fantastic images that not only they're pinpointing a place and time and people, but they give such wonderful visual texture to any kind of presentation. They're fascinating. And I love those. So, now, if we're looking for this kind of thing, whether we're doing a family history or making a documentary, now this is not the same as going into a museum and looking at everything and saying, okay, I want a picture of that and a picture of that. This is a different kind of research. So, do you want to talk a little bit about how to approach that? Like if I'm coming to you and looking to do a piece about this fictional family, what am I going to do first? Am I going to check out your website?
I think that makes sense. I mean, I guess I always like it when, if someone reaches out to me, whether by it's calling me or sending me an email, I really appreciate it if you have done a little bit of homework on your own, just that, you have identified the Library Company of Philadelphia, in this case, as a place that might have the kind of material that you're looking for. Just by going to our website, you should have been able to read, sort of the quick blurb that I gave you at the beginning of this talk, and, not assume that you're going to find images of, I don't know, wild animals from, Borneo at the Library Company, that you're approaching the Library Company as a likely place that would have things that you're interested in. I think that, and then by calling or emailing me, tell me about your topic, be as specific as you'd like. I mean, that is helpful to me. It's great to know that you're working on a topic where you would like to find old photographs of Philadelphia, but I need some, we have thousands and thousands that would fall into that category. So, be very specific. You can say, I really want to find, I have people say, I'm looking for an image of such and such a building. I mean, often we can't help you that specifically, but then I can talk to you about, well, what is it you're really trying to do? Is it that neighborhood you're interested in? Is it that type of business you're interested in? Or, what's your wish list? You might have some specific things that you've been able to find by, going onto our online catalog. And that's great. If you can say, I was on your online catalog and these are 3 things I know I want to see, then talk to me about what you wish you could see, what you wish we might have. And who knows, we may have it. And that's, one thing I do want to emphasize, that it's great that you can go to our online catalogs, look at our digital catalogs, but I think probably every institution, and certainly the library company, but I don't think I'm telling tales out of school in terms of, I think every institution has part of their collection which has not been cataloged and certainly has not been digitized. So don't assume that if you don't see it online that it just doesn't exist. Always ask, please.
I know that's been very magical to me, where sometimes you'll know in your head, oh, we got a collection in last month and there's a stereograph that has that ambulance in it. The librarians are an amazing source. And while the Library Company of Philadelphia really focuses on American history and culture, there are many, many institutions really all over the country. And I would say starting with the Library of Congress that have amazing holdings. You can go online to the Library of Congress. And if you're me, you're typing in Civil War medicine to see what do they have that's already digitized and available for downloading or copying. But so it's a good idea. You do have to do, I think homework is the key word there, where you have to say, okay, who has old medical stuff? Is that the College of Physicians or the Motor Museum? I mean, it's worth it to kind of hone in on the research library that specializes in the area you're most interested in. But what you're saying, though, about the wish list and contacting a librarian, think about that, because that was kind of an easy description. If I'm looking for an Italian family who arrived in Philadelphia in the area of 1900, that's giving Sarah like real clues about, okay, daily life, residence, travel, where she always finds stuff for me that I never expected. That's really wonderful. So that's key. The other thing, you kind of want to check to make sure that the copyright is available. A lot of stuff that's over 100 years old is copyright free. How does that work?
Yeah, I believe it's 1926, I think, is, if it's pre-1926, chances are it's in sort of, the public domain and there isn't a copyright. I know that at the library company, the majority of our material is earlier than that, so we don't have to think a whole lot about it. But we do have a statement that says we are not the copyright holders. If you as a filmmaker or as a publisher are concerned about using one of our images, basically it's up to you to try to track down the copyright. We've never, ever had an issue with that.
Many times, too, if you're looking at the images that museum or library has digitized and is offering online, it will say whether there's a copyright in effect or not. And for the most part, with the older materials, you really are free to use them. Now, sometimes, if it's digital and it's online and you can download it, and usually if an institution like Library Company has digitized it, it's at a high resolution. So you can download it to use in your documentary, in your family history that you're making. Or if it's not digitized, most places can do a high resolution scan. Now, they will charge a small fee for that, but that is a way. Unfortunately, you just kind of can't come in and take pictures or take it home like from the free library. But you can, if you need a high resolution image, you can do that. Sometimes you can take a photograph with permission. So the other thing I wanted to say about when you go into one of these specialized research libraries, that be prepared that you can't take all your stuff in. Like, nobody wants to see you with a ballpoint pen. Once you're inside that library, you can bring pencils in, but a lot of times they're going to ask you to leave everything except your pencils and paper, or your phone. You can take pictures, but just make sure that you're operating within the comfort zone of that library or museum.
And we do try to, give everybody, clear guidelines without being, mean about anything, hopefully. But, every institution is a little bit different. And, you just have to be aware of that. And, but as Carole was saying, it's pretty much, just bring the minimal amount of material with you. And, you will, if you forget your pencil, we'll have a pencil for you. We'll have paper for you. And we try to accommodate everybody as best we can. And we're happy to have people use our materials. We just have to be careful about them because, many times they are very rare, fragile things that we do need to protect.
But they are fabulous. And Library Company is truly one of my favorite places to do research. I love the staff, and you guys are always so much fun, and you have great ideas, and somebody's always running in with, did she see this? So that's a wonderful thing. Sarah, thank you so much. So hopefully we have an idea about it. It is kind of a multi-stage process to find these amazing materials. And to remind you that if you do use them in a documentary or a book or anything else, please put courtesy of the Library Company of Philadelphia or whatever institution has allowed you to use them, and texturize your presentations with this rare and beautiful material.
And could I just add, just quickly, be sure if you need new photography, don't wait till the last minute to order it.
Get that request in there early, because
every place has different, guidelines for how much lead time they need. But, we at the library only have one person who does our digitizing and our scanning. So, it's, we want you to meet your deadlines, but you have to give us an opportunity to help you meet your deadlines. So, just as soon as you know what you want, let us know so we can.
And she is wonderful too, who does that. So thank you so much. And please join us next time on Producer's Toolbox.